all of the UK is on fire.
Oh, is it?
With regards to video game coverage.
Oh, maybe you heard.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
It's not
Do you want to talk about
UK.
that? Should we at least address? We should address it.
We should.
We should address it.
Somebody at least flip the pickup truck.
It keeps coming up. Yeah, exactly. Someone
try
flip the lorry over into a. Let's call them ditches over there.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
Somebody got stuffed in a boot.
Yes, or will by the end of this. I don't know.
Seems like it's heading that way.
Yeah.
So is this still escalating?
Well,
It's now starting to ensnare. Like on Polygon, they had their own little issue with locking their comments on one of their stories. Like it's starting to ensnare this wider net.
I think there's a group of people that are looking at this stuff and are very angry about it, and then are getting angrier that it's not getting addressed in a way that they deem satisfactory.
Let's start it from the top.
Kind of
then
lashing out from there. So I guess to start from the top. In the UK, they have something called the Games Media Awards. And it is an awards show where they honor people who write about video games.
And then I believe they also honor like certain media campaigns. I think it's like this.
Like advertising, also.
I think so. I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak out of turn though. I don't want to speak out. I don't. This sort of it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Regards to that,
a lot of PR people go there. A lot of game journalists go there.
Some writers are nominated for awards.
Yes.
And the whole thing, every single gold level sponsor for the event is a publisher of video games.
Yeah.
With the exception of OnLive. So already, I think that event sounds kind of like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
So some people went to that event. I guess they're prone to do it. It's been going for a couple of years now, at least. I think I remember hearing about it last year.
I had never heard of it before last week. It sounds just crazy on its face.
Yeah, just exactly like the notion of this event to begin with.
Even if the sponsorship was above board, like I don't like. Does this profession really need?
It's weird to have sponsorship. Period. I think like if Games Media wants to get together and like get in a room and like pat each other on the back for like good work that other people want to highlight, that's fine.
Yeah,
but it's the way they've structured this. Anyway, this is getting away from.
So I guess at this event they handed out cards saying like, hey, if you tweet something with this hashtag, you might win a PlayStation 3. And it was some hashtag that promoted some product, I guess, along the way. I don't know what the product was. And some people who you would think would know better, who write about games for a living, partook in this and tried to win this PS3 and basically, use their Twitter accounts and their own personal followers, to spread this advertising-oriented message. That led to some people freaking out.
So then this comes at the same time when there was a running joke happening on the internet about this screen capture from Jeff Keighley doing his Mountain Dew promotion with Halo 4, where at New York Comic Con he was sitting around a bunch of Mountain Dew and Doritos, answering questions from various sites. We were solicited on this
by Mountain Dew, who asked us if we would like to interview Jeff Keighley. I ain't got no problem with Jeff Keighley. I think that dude's A-okay. But I do not need to go through a soft drink company to communicate with Jeff Keighley.
Right.
Especially like to get his expert opinion about video games.
Yeah, so they were serving up as like...
I mean, they were just like sending out a mass email. Like, it was clear, they didn't know who we were.
I just think it's more ridiculous that we somehow are on those lists.
Yeah, well, Jeff and I did talk about agreeing to it just to freak Jeff Keighley out.
Yeah.
Like the idea if we got connected on the other line.
This would be pretty funny. But I was like, but then they were like, if you accept this interview, you need to run the video. You have to run the video.
Yeah.
Do not sign up for this.
But in any format of our choice.
Yes, yeah, any video format, whatever it is. So they were serving him up in terms of just like, hey, he will discuss the fall video game lineup, the future of video games as it relates to New York Comic Con, and Halo 4, Mountain Dew.
I mean, that was kind of like that was the wrapper, but it wasn't implied that
it wasn't like you were going to talk.
Hey, you need to make sure you ask about this.
Yeah.
Because then there were a couple of. If you go on YouTube, you can find some of these interviews. There's a bunch of them. But at the end of the day,
so if I visit dewxp.com,
I don't know if he'll be.
How much
there.
XP will I get?
If that's Jeff does talk about like clearly Keighley, has to bring. I'm sure that's part of this deal. He has to bring this up or work it in.
I don't know.
There are quotes out there where he's talking about it. Anyway.
I haven't seen any of the videos.
This is that's down a different path. But anyway, these are two things are happening at the same time. There's a screen capture that goes around of Keighley in front of all this fucking swag or whatever you want to call it. And there's this article on Eurogamer, Robert Florence, I believe is the name.
The real controversy here is I don't understand how you shorten the name Robert to Rab. Like, if we can agree that this is the real controversy, like, what the fuck is going on out there?
There's no A in
There's
Robert.
No A in Robert. Christ.
Ever.
Or Florence.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, they're Euros.
Yeah.
And so he writes a piece with that as the header and then talking about this hashtag and saying, like, this is a problem that some of my colleagues are doing this. And then in there he decided to pluck out some of the people that were using that hashtag, which includes this Lawrence Wainwright.
Lauren
Wainwright.
No, Lauren.
Lauren?
Is not a French dude.
Lauren?
Yeah.
Well, I'm still getting over the whole Quebec thing from the Assassin's Creed Quick Look.
Yeah, fair enough.
Quebec.
It's just Lauren.
Yeah. Who, has in her resume has some experience, or listed some experience working as a consultant with Square Enix on Tomb Raider. And then, so anyway, this guy had this larger critique of, like, how can you trust these people who are ostensibly games writers, games journalists, and that are participating in these hashtags, sitting in front of Doritos and Mountain Dew, and consulting on Tomb Raider while also reviewing those products.
Yeah, it is a 100% valid criticism.
Yeah.
Though, at the same time, I feel like the way it was presented in that article was bitter and overly kind of standoffish. I mean, there's kind of no nice way to bring some of this stuff up, I guess. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, they are legitimate issues that yes, he is 100% right. But I feel like that the article end of it could have been handled a whole lot better.
Yeah, I mean, the premise is completely sound, but the kind of cable news tactic of, like, I'm not saying this, but maybe this kind of thing.
And that's where then it spiraled out of control, was where this girl was employed by MCV full time, I think semi-recently, and then they asked Eurogamer to bring it down or to edit the piece.
I don't know that asked is an appropriate.
Well, no.
way to frame it.
So the way, like, there's been subsequent interviews with, like,
legal threats.
Well, there's been subsequent discussions with Tom Bramwell, who's the editor over at Eurogamer, where libel is a much more serious thing in the UK than it is over here.
The laws for that stuff it's why you see a lot more blind items in their tabloids and stuff like that, I think.
So the way everyone seems to be saying it, unless, like, Eurogamer is a above board publication. Like, they are the best that, like, that and Edge are the best that Europe has to offer in terms of, like, games writing. There's a lot of really smart people that write for those sites. It sounds more like, because the libel is so much more serious in the UK, they sort of just went along with it without getting to the stage that, like, even talking about libel would come up as like a legal thing.
And are they claiming the word never entered the conversation?
Yeah,
my understanding was that they just
said, hey, can you tweak this?
And they consulted some legal counsel who said, like, you might want to.
Yeah, like, it was not actually.
I read the original article, and, I mean, obviously the laws are very different here, because I took from it was quotes that people had actually said, actual quotes, and then saying, like, that seems inappropriate, like, not ever.
Which it all was.
It all
looked absolutely terrible. It's like, what the fuck do you think you're doing?
Yeah,
being in this line of work and doing stupid shit like this.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's something that I have dismissed a couple of times. I ended up kind of wading into it and writing a lot about it. And Totillo has a story going up on Kotaku that'll have some quotes from me in it, and there's some forum posts and other stuff like that. But it's easy to write off, because I just look at it and go, like, well, those people, they don't do the same thing that we do, as far as I'm concerned. People that are out there, especially, like, people that have freelanced and consulted for companies and all sort of stuff, like, it's kind of a different thing. So, I don't want to begrudge them their living. Like, hey, go make a living, go do your thing. But when that stuff gets wrapped up and people start lashing out at what we do, and people start immediately assuming that everyone in this line of work is on the fucking take, it's fucking insane.
I do think it's understandable that this crazy confluence of events has turned into this lightning rod, making people go, like, what the fuck is going on in the business of writing about games?
Yeah.
But it is not a singular business where everybody shares the same standards and practices.
And there are people in different lines of work. I mean, there are people out there getting dragged into this that I bet wouldn't self-identify as a game journalist. that would identify as a host or a personality or something along those lines first and foremost. And it's a lot of people that you wouldn't necessarily look to for advice about reviews or people that you wouldn't necessarily say, like, that's the person I trust when it comes to information about games, and just becoming much bigger players in this story than they probably should be, as this thing kind of starts to resemble a witch hunt. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of blown up into this, but at the same time, yeah, like the initial kernel of it is totally fucked up. And and people are finding things that are just as fucked up.
Right. And there are certainly plenty of writers that are employed in editorial positions now, even here in the US, that have done consulting in between jobs. That is a
mock reviews.
I've never done any of those, but that's a very I would characterize it as fairly common that there are a number of people that in between jobs then go on to do mock reviews, because it's a it pays well, and then B, it's using similar skills that you've used at your job.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, like the idea of a mock review is that a publisher is paying you to review their game, and the review doesn't get published anywhere. It's something they take and they pull it internal. And they're basically trying to, it's usually, like right around the time a game is done, but kind of a little bit before they've sent the game out to print magazines, is usually how the timing works, I guess, right? And they want to know how it's going to score. And they want to allocate their marketing dollars accordingly.
This is also they use to have like internal PR metrics of like, we expect this game, like everyone at PR has a number as a result of these mock reviews. Like, we expect this game to come out at like, internally they'll know like, at like a 75.
Right.
So they'll like, they might aim for something different, or the way they distribute product is to try and goose the scores in that way if they think certain outlets are going to be preferential to a higher score.
Yeah.
But they have internal metrics that are like, that's also like why I think even in the Medal of Honor stuff on their call, I think they referenced internal expectations were higher, which is, could very well be a reference to mock reviews done for the game expected it to review better than how it happened in the actual press.
Yeah, and it's there have been situations where mock reviews have been way off base, and that has led to the people on those review teams or on the consultancy firms or whatever that they're bringing in to kind of make these projections, just getting tossed out. Like, okay, if you can't accurately predict what this is really going to be, you're of no use to us.
Yeah.
But then sometimes people do it on a freelance basis as well. I mean, it's one of those things that like it has always seemed completely dirty in a lot of circumstances. But
or if it's one of those things, like for me, it's like once you cross into that, you have crossed a certain line. I don't begrudge anybody that does it. I know it pays really well.
Sure,
exactly. When I've been in between jobs, publishers have come to me saying like, would you be interested in doing mock reviews?
I was offered one of those before I started at Giant Bomb, and it paid extremely well.
Yeah.
But I turned it down. Mainly, how do you ever go back after that?
Right.
Like once you have done that for them, like,
so I almost did one. I almost did one.
Yeah.
Back in 2007. Or I guess maybe even early. No, it would have been 2007. Like not long after I gotten fired, before we had officially started up Giant Bomb, while I was still kind of weighing my options, someone got a hold of me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing some mock review work?" And I've always been fascinated by the process. I've never talked to anyone about doing one. I've never done one before. Wasn't working at the time. Didn't necessarily need the money, but just the process is fascinating. So I was like, oh well, maybe this would be an interesting thing to know more about.
And you want them to write you a check for $1.
So that's how it ended up actually. So it ended up being like, yeah, okay, you're going to get, I think it was $1,000. I actually don't know what the.
It pays much more than you're getting for an average game review.
Yeah, freelancer doing reviews is like $150 or 200 or something, right? So
we're basically adding a zero.
Yeah. At one point, we were paying people $300 for freelance reviews if they were real good. Back in the good old days. So I agreed to do it. Fascinated by the process, and then ended up like the Giant Bomb, the Whiskey Media stuff came together a lot faster. Like it was just like, oh no, we're gonna do this, and then I was collecting a paycheck again, so I ended up contacting them and saying like, look, I agreed to do this work, I'll still do it if you want, but I can't accept any money from it. And then that went back to their legal team. They said, no, we need the money is the part where
this is legal.
This is legal.